a few words on the nature of the Trinity, which is the model for creation. So this evidently the Trinity thinks differently from humans. Perhaps what is most significant about God, or his most dearing attribute, is his desire not to be God. In other words, the divine humility is so incredible that instead of, maintaining his high and mighty isolation from human miseries, he identifies with them. And that's the second meaning of the cross, when you put God's body become human on that human condition. It means God has totally identified with the human situation, just as it is, which is damaged, beaten, broken, in some cases loathsome, and capable of rejecting God. So that's what it means that God is interested in sinners, sinning meaning those who reject God in the fullest sense. So those are people he might say he's most interested in, because he knows the terrible misery that they experience through alienation from God and from others and from creation. That is the inevitable consequence, the natural sanction of rejecting God or sin or our neighbor and things like that. So the Father then is total emptiness, but with infinite possibility to become anything or to create anything. So it's this enormous energy which has the capacity to be everything and has chosen creation as something he wanted to be, is totally surrendered to the Son, which is an interior image of all that the Father is. Of course, there's no images in God, we're just using words. But the Son is the Father in a visible sense, or in a thinkable sense, or beyond thinking, because their thoughts are not enough to describe this. And so the Son, whose total receptivity might be considered even the feminine aspect of God. Genders are not much help in discussing the Trinity. But what the Son does is, having received the whole of the riches of the divinity absolutely gratuitously, returns it all to the Father without limit. And so the Father lives in the Son, because the Son manifests all that he is in actuality. So the Spirit is the love that arises spontaneously from the total gift of each of the two infinite relationships or persons. So this is what is so awesome. The Father and the Son are a total gift of themselves to each other, but they have a relationship, and all that constitutes them as separate is the way they received the divine essence originally. So the Father always has it, the Son received it from the moment of eternity. And the Spirit is the exuberance, or the celebration, or the most sweet kiss, I guess we'd say, is the spiritual marriage, and you might say, or the unity of the Father and the Son, when they realize that they have given themselves completely away. So the Spirit is gifted in his very essence. He's nothing else, and so he has to be given to us, because he can't give himself, because he has no self to give. He just is sheer love, okay? So the Spirit then is sent to us by the Son, and consequences of his transforming the sacrifice that goes on eternally in the Trinity into human life, where sacrifice becomes the most intense suffering. in heaven, that is to say, in the Trinity, sacrifice is delightful. Giving oneself away completely is what beatitude is. And the freedom to do that is, God is infinite, and that's the freedom he proposes to share with us, to be completely free of any self-consideration and just to be what? God. So to become nothing is to become everything when it has completed its course. And everything, not just in the sense of creatures, but everything in the sense of that which is beyond anything, and which is the infinite becoming of the three persons of the Trinity. So there's no inaction in Yah, except that rest is the same as action in God. But being is beyond both, and God's reality is beyond being. So that's why our thoughts kind of crumble in the face of such love, which is beyond any love we can conceive of. Love beyond love. This is the Spirit. And it suggests the kind of heroic sacrifice of ourselves that is sometimes required for the fullness of life, and which glorifies God in a way that would not be possible without that sacrifice. So our journey is manifesting God's goodness. And from each of us comes this radiance of the original creation that is overlain by the darkness of senses and our faults and so on, but which gradually begins to thin out and to brighten up as one habitually begins to feel and think as God does. And wisdom is what perceives reality the way God does. So it's a real participation in the divine life and knowledge. So when we say that God is unknowable, we're referring to the intellect, which can't put God in rational terms. But God is not unknowable to love.